Okay. So, welcome. Welcome back. I am recovering from a cold, the flu, I don't know what. And I am so thrilled to be joining you for part two. Yesterday's was part one, and my voice was struggling. I was joined from bed. Today I'm feeling a little bit better and I'm excited. I have some news which I'll share about at the end of the session. But today we are exploring, just as yesterday, loving yourself free and what that means. Because truly, when we talk about healing, when we talk about liberation, we're talking about self love. This isn't self love that's like, oh, I'm just going to go sit in a bath with my bath bombs and my salts. That's an absolutely wonderful way to love and treat yourself well, especially around Valentine's Day. That's wonderful, beautiful. But I'm talking about real self love. I'm talking about the actual feeling, the depth of emotion, the depth of showing up for yourself to the extent that you love yourself no matter what, no matter what, no matter what has occurred, where you think you are lacking or slacking in life, or whatever. No matter what, you love yourself. And it's as we discussed yesterday, it's a present pulling emotion. It pulls you into the present. It's not even like a pull, it's just like it's like sparkles. If you ever had those candies, those candy rockets that went in your mouth, it's like that. It's like, oh my goodness, an explosion of flavor, an explosion of richness, an explosion of aliveness, an explosion of I'm human. I'm here. Oh my goodness. Let's play. Let's play. What do I have to like throw all that away? Let's play. Who am I now? I'm here. I'm at this stage. What can I do from here? I have this desire. Let's get to it. It is that richness. And so when I talk about living orgasmically, when I talk about living in pleasure, you probably even heard me talk about living orgasmically. I'm coming back into that. I had such a long season of growth the past few years, and I kind of took a step back from my pleasure coaching, and I'm starting to come back in. And so you're going to hear me talk about living pleasurably and orgasmically, but it is this rich presence. It's this love that brings us into aliveness, this love that breathes life into us. And this love, what I've learned, the juice of this past season for me is this love flows from the deeper self. And so, my darlings, love is at the center of everything. We come from love, we return to love. And what we choose to do in between is our choice, but we can choose to come back to this love and live our lives integrated with this love, this incredible love that heals, that heals. You feel physiological changes when you connect to your deeper self. If you are connected to scientists, please get in touch with me because I would love to, conduct studies on this. And I'm sure there's so many people who connect studies on this already, on monks and what happens when we're in these deep states of meditation. There's already those research studies. So we don't even need the studies. We already know. We feel it. We feel it. We live it. We breathe it. And you are starting to feel it, live it, breathe it within this challenge with a daily meditation, the foundational practice of connecting to your deeper self and feeling the impact of that, feeling the impact of that. So I do love to start with music. We're going to start with a song. I've been getting back into Perfume Genius, who I haven't listened to in years. I love him or them. I actually don't know their pronouns. Uh, I'll have to look into that. But I love this artist, and we are listening to Fool by Perfume Genius. As you come on in, feel free to move your body as always. Get weird with it. Do some snail action. Sorry, jellyfish action. I was like, when you're coming out of a flu or whatever, and you start to get your energy back. This was me last night at like 11 p.m. doing interpretive dance. The perfume genius. So I hope it gives you energy. I hope it brings you into the love of now, right? Let's hit play. Okay. So today we're going to be getting into shame. Shame, shame. Ooh, a heavy one. And you'll understand. And I'm sure it already is kind of obvious why shame requires a depth of love in order to heal more than any other emotion. And so if you see me looking over, I'm just taking a peek at my laptop. I have some notes every session, and I'm trying to be better with time. You ever done like private sessions with me? You know, sometimes I can just go over because I'm just so lax. And I'm trying to do better with time. And even in these sessions, I'm scheduling more and more. So I just want to be better at time. I'm laughing at myself. I don't know why. I find it funny. Or I'm someone who's motivated. When it's time to do the thing, I'll just do it. But if there's too much time, I just kind of I'll get to it. But as soon as it's time, yeah, let's go. Like I'll do it. I'll put up a whole bunch of resistance until it's like I have to do it. So now I'm like, okay, let's just do it. So I'm gonna keep these sessions in about like a 45 minute right, keep it nice and tight. And so let's get right into it. Shame. Shame. Shame is the emotion that actually brought me to this work as an intimacy coaching and healing. I want to say healing in general. I think shame has been with me for a long time, specifically. Sorry, I just, I know I paused the recording because someone came in and I wasn't sure if I still paused it. And that just kind of threw me. So make sure everything is good because there's no worse feeling than filming like a whole thing and then it's not recording. Um, but shame has been something that's been with me, particularly sexual shame, since I was a very young girl. It's something that I carried into my young adulthood. And then after college, I had just this crisis um, of everything. I had a crisis of faith. I had a crisis. And it wasn't really even like crisis of faith so much as it was a growing desire to love, a growing desire or realizing like this, what I was in. I was Christian at the time, and I don't really I don't like to disrespect anyone else's Christian beliefs. And if that's your journey, that's your journey. And you might have different experiences than me, or you may have had similar experiences than me, and weigh different things, right? And that's your journey. But for me, and I'm someone who studied religion. I thought I might go to seminary as well as medical school. It's just been such a deep part of me and something that I wanted to explore on a deeper level. And I was just realizing I just had all this love expanding in my heart. And shame was something that it felt there was, or even my sexual shame around um, masturbation. And I hadn't even, or even just seeing friends being shamed for having sex. And like it just didn't make sense to me. Um, and I saw how it toyed with my own relationship with, I call source now, but at the time God. Um, it toyed with my own spiritual practice, and it felt like I don't know that this is correct. And it was affecting my mental health. And affecting my depression. Because when you have shame, the thing about shame is it creates disconnect as much as it's trying to achieve connection. And we're going to get into this. Shame creates disconnect as much as it's trying to achieve connection. And it's not even really, it's a survival mechanism within us, that's trying to keep us still living in our pact or tribe, whatever it is. It's trying to protect our social ties because it recognizes we need our social ties for resources and survival. And shame is trying to protect us, but it's not doing so effectively. And so shame is one of those emotions that can really eat us up inside. It can really it's like you cook a delicious meal and then you spill poison all over it. It like poisons us from the inside out. And it leaks into every single area of our lives because we're not able to be intimate with others and we're not able to be intimate with ourselves. And so when I say shame is the emotion that brought me to this work and my own, that propelled me on my healing journey, that made me realize I really had to heal, it's because I recognize I didn't have true relationships. I didn't feel fully known. I felt like I was easily discarded and I experienced it. I just experienced that. And I now know I was attracting, certain types of people who maybe were narcissistic, but I didn't have any kind of framework about that because of how I was. I was such a people pleaser. I was so easily like moldable. And but the shame also meant that I didn't know myself. I didn't really, I couldn't say I really love myself. I mean, I definitely didn't. But when you have shame and you're shunning a part of yourself, that means you really don't fully love yourself. And you also aren't able to have a real connection with others because they're never really meeting the full real you. They're only meeting a part of you. And yeah, right? They're only meeting a part of you. Shame cuts you up into pieces, and it's really an internal job that you're doing, but it's oftentimes propelled by what you're in. So whether that's your community, your values, your religion, your family system, groups that you are in, or or ideologies that you have, or whatever you buy into, or just what you believe. Uh, Shame is often used within society as a mechanism for control. And what shame says, shame is an emotion. Uh, it's a part of you that feels wrong, that feels bad. Within the Christian faith, it's like part of you that feels sinful, the broken part of you. I'm gonna cough one. And this is very distinct from guilt. And I know Brene Brown has a lot of wonderful writing and work on differentiating between guilt and shame. And so you can visit her work if you have never heard of her, Brene Brown. And you just look up Brene Brown, shame versus guilt, and she has lots of resources on this. But guilt essentially is not, uh, you know, um, it's not really a destructive emotion. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great when we have guilt. Guilt often, is just matter of fact, right? It's responsibility. Guilt is saying, I'm responsible for the thing that I did. And I might feel shame about it because it was bad, it was wrong. Or no, no, no. You may feel guilt, but you may not feel shame because guilt is just saying I'm responsible. I feel responsible for what I did, and that doesn't feel good because it was a bad thing. But guilt doesn't say necessarily I am bad. It says I did a bad thing and I feel bad about that, right? Guilt also has empathy in it, right? Because it's like, I recognize what I did wasn't good and it hurt others or it hurt, a living being or a planet or hurt the situation. I feel empathetic about that. I feel bad. Guilt is good because it's saying, I recognize that wasn't in line with what I value. I caused harm or I messed up. And I'm responsible. So let me make amends. Let me take the necessary course of actions to make this right. And to make it's like, I feel better as I make things right. And it can be a very positive, uplifting emotion. It's something that we can benefit from. You know, uh, I think American culture can benefit from. It's healthy guilt, um, healthy recognition, healthy accountability, healthy responsibility. We messed up. How can we make this right? Yeah, it was a long time ago, but how can we make this right in our society? Shame, toxic shame. All shame, I think, is kind of toxic. Meanwhile, shame is saying not just I did something bad, but I am bad. I am bad. I am bad. And I think this is where those who struggle, we talk about white guilt, but I think really what we're dealing with in American society is white shame, um, and inability to differentiate between guilt and shame, um, and how to process that, and how to communicate that. And no, 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 we're not saying feel shame. We're saying something wrong was done. This is what I believe many people of color are saying. They're saying recognize this continues to affect us, have empathy, and let's adjust the system. You see, there's a difference. It's talking about responsibility, it's talking about making amends, making things right, taking accountability, expressing empathy, and it's not necessarily saying you are bad, you are wrong, you are dirty, you are awful, you are blah blah. And of course there are those who do project that, right? And there are those who do kind of, they live in that, right? They continue to perpetrate harm. Um, but that's a bigger discussion, something maybe not I can't really dive into here without like real examples. But that's the big distinguishing factor between guilt and shame is really this feeling that you are wrong and bad and awful and not lovable. And it can really erode our sense of self. It erodes our ability to connect to ourselves. And as a result, it erodes our ability to connect to others and experience real intimacy. So, okay, the shamed self, and I want to say as well, guilt isn't necessarily always positive because sometimes guilt can be projected onto us. I've been talking more about narcissistic abuse as I've experienced it, and it's been kind of the hallmark of the last few years and something I've really had to dive very, very deeply in to heal and understand. And guilt is often used as a tool, and we'll talk about guilt in part three. Guilt is often used as a tool, um, as a way, a guilt trip, right? Guilt is often used manipulatively as well, a way for an abuser or a narcissistic person to deflect responsibility and put it on you, right? And so guilt, in that sense, that kind of guilt is um, it's not appropriate and it's not healthy. It's not your guilt. It's not your responsibility. You should not be. We, I mean, I don't like to use the word should. Uh, we don't want to take on the guilt of another. Right? That's when guilt becomes unhealthy. And so shame is really a part of ourselves. When we feel shame, it's a part of ourselves that doesn't feel good. And when we're not aware, And if we're not like conscious of the shame, if we're not even, because sometimes we can feel an emotion and not even like consciously clock it. We don't like consciously go, oh yeah, I'm feeling shame. Sometimes it's so just a part, and this was the case for me. It's so a part of your emotional landscape. It's so part of your mental landscape that it's just like that's something that you always feel. It's just kind of the blueprint. It's kind of just always there. And so when it's unconscious like that, it can become a way that our puppet strings are pulled, not by another, but by ourselves. The shame actually pulls our strings. And this is why shame is such a powerful emotion socially, right? Using shame, shaming others, shame on you. It actually instills in you your puppet strings. And it makes it so that we don't even need someone outside of ourselves pulling on those strings. We start to pull our own strings because the shame feeling feels so bad. It's actually our nervous systems, it's our nervous system's defense mechanism to get us to cooperate, to um, to fit in, to coalesce, to kind of just go along with what is going to allow us to stay in this tribe, stay in this community. It doesn't even matter if there are other communities we can join. Our nervous system has deemed this one as maybe the one that we're getting our resources from, or what have you. Um, and it's like, okay, so activate shame whenever this potential behavior comes up. If you wanna, be sexual or own your sexuality, you start thinking about that, activate shame because this community doesn't allow that. And so it's our nervous system's way of yanking our strings, putting us back into place. And I mean, it's something that that it's like to an extent it's helpful, right? Because it helps us to stay in that community, um, get some of our needs met, not all of them, right? Because that need for actual connection, actual intimacy is not getting met. But it allows us to maybe get those needs that feel the most urgent that we can't take care of ourselves, especially for children growing up in these specific environments. It's like, well, you know, especially if you are LGBTQIA, then as a queer person, it's like, well, I might risk losing my home, like, getting kicked out of my house, losing family members, losing friends, losing X, Y, and Z. And so shame becomes this really important way that your nervous system keeps you tethered and gives you access to those resources that you need that you probably would not be able to provide yourself. And it's really later in life when we have the ability to provide those basic needs that we can address things like shame. That's why shame healing is so important in adulthood, because that's often when we can do the work, when we can do the work of healing, because shame, and oftentimes with shame, as soon as you start to heal, you're like, why on earth did I carry that for so long? And then it's like, oh, right. Once you've learned how this works, then it's like, oh yeah, right. Because without it, I might have lost critical, you know, resources that I needed as a child, developing adult, whatever. And so shame is there as a protective mechanism. And as you have more resources, you can then heal. And this is the beauty of the body. It often offers up, um, everything happens in perfect timing, right? It offers up what is ready to be healed just as you have what you need to support yourself in that healing. So even joining this call is a major land. It's a major milestone. It's a major milestone. And I'm going to cough again. Okay. Yeah. So it's a major milestone, and shame keeps us in what it believes is going to be good social standing. Good social standing. But oftentimes as well, we feel propelled to heal the shame because, like I said, shame is not doing a perfect job of meeting our needs. We might be, connected, like, have friends, but we don't feel known, right? And so other things may come up, depression, eating disorders, anxiety issues, right? And so it might then become pertinent that we address the shame because we recognize shame isn't doing the job well. And so even if we don't have all the resources, it becomes like a dire need. Like I gotta address this now because um the shame is the pros and cons, they're not leveling out correctly. Right. And so I'm explaining this because part of releasing shame, sometimes we get shame about the shame. Isn't that funny? Sometimes we start to feel shame about the shame. And so explaining, understanding the process, taking this into consideration, we can go easy on ourselves and understand, oh, like I'm just right now at the point where shame is ready to be healed. And there's nothing has gone wrong. I'm not late. It's not, I haven't waited, wasted years or decades or whatever. It's just that this is the right time for it. Right. It's the right time for it. All right. Um, da, 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 da. What would I like to cover next? Yeah. So shame again is keeping you in good social standing, quote unquote, right? What we perceive to be good social standing. And sometimes with shame, it doesn't even allow us to imagine and to really dream. Can you put ourselves in a position? I'm going to tell you right now, never in a million years did I think I would be the pussy queen. Um, Never, as like a good Christian girl, good girl, people pleaser. Never thought that this would be my path. And so, their shame doesn't even that my shame would have never even like, what? Huh? You told me that years ago. It's like, huh? No, hope not. Hope not. Right? Hope not. Jeez. No. And now it's like, and I've kind of, distanced myself from that work these past few years to do some deeper healing around other things. I'm coming back to it and it just feels like a breath of air. Like, yeah, this is me. This is this is me. It just feels so good. But shame doesn't anticipate that it's gonna feel good on the other side of your liberation and healing. All it can think about really is how good it feels to be in good social standing. And sometimes it's not even thinking about how good it feels to be in good social standing because oftentimes you're in pain because you don't feel emotional connection, right? But it's just kind of like, oh, but that will be worse, right? So sometimes it's not even thinking rationally. It's just kind of like I anticipate that being more painful than what the pain I'm suffering through right now until it's like, actually, this is pretty bad and I need to heal this. um, okay. And so I do want to say though, healing shame as a result of the reason why shame is here, right? It's here to kind of keep you in good social standing. As a result, naturally, healing shame comes with some kind of loss. So if in the most like um in the best case scenario, you're healing shame after you've left the community that was shaming you or the circumstances that were, shaming you. You've left that. And so then you have new social ties and you're in a group of people who are not expressing shame around this thing. And so expressing it's just like, oh wow, this feels good. Right. Like I found like people who love this part of me. So I can it's just this joyful journey. And even still, you might still have connections with old crew, but let's say you don't have connection with that old crew at all, that old community at all. And then it's like you're blank slate. You've a blank slate in a new community that is embracing the thing you're ashamed of. It's like a pain-free journey then, aside from the pain that came with going, right? But you don't necessarily assign it to the journey of healing shame, right? It's just something you had to fall out or whatever. That's kind of like the best case scenario. But in most cases, you're still somehow integrated in whatever it is. And so shame healing is going to naturally come with some kind of loss. There's going to be some kind of loss. You may lose your past image of purity or goodness if you were a good girl like me, right? Or you come from purity culture, if you're a Christian, or in any kind of religious situation, or you're pure in other ways, right? Maybe you were the star athlete. You were always making the right choices in life, right? Blah, 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 whatever it is. Healing that shame is always going to come with a loss. It's always going to come with some kind of loss. You lose your past image, your past appearance of goodness, and one more. And you also lose those in the society that required this purity or goodness from you. And of course, we can also get into projection. Usually that's also wrapped up in there, but you're going to lose those in the society that required that purity or goodness from you. But here's the thing. You also gain a lot. You gain yourself. You gain back that part of you that has been shunned, that you feel that you can't express, or you have to hide. It's like in the shadows. You gain back that shadow self or rejected self, and that is major, major. And it in this moment, because when you're under the spell, the trance of shame, that part of you feels like a lesser part of you, feels like an insignificant part of you, feels like a throwaway part of you. And in your reclamation, in your shame healing, you actually realize this is a precious part of you. It's a beautiful part of you, right? It's something to shield, to hold closely, to take in. And so you gain back your full self. And it's like the poison starts to be released, right? It's no longer, it's slowly drained out of your system and you get this new life back. It's like you get back energy because remember, shame is something that your nervous system is doing. You're expending energy, your cells, your mind, your brain, your time. You are actually, and I'm naming this as like physical things because sometimes it feels like woo woo, like, whenever we think about, healing, it's like, I really have to do it. Like, what's the cost here? We may think of like the cost it has in relationships, but it has a real physiological cost. It costs a lot. It takes a lot of energy to hold you, to constrict yourself. It actually takes a lot of energy to pull your puppet strings tight. It takes a lot of energy. And so you'll feel that energy free up in your body. You feel your muscles relax, your heart space relax, stress melt off of you. It is incredible. Um, it's a liberation in all forms. You gain back so, so much, right? And so you start to see that this is not just like uh, like, it's okay if I lose that part of me. It was a precious part of you. Every single part of you is precious. And you also gain back a truer form of love. Because if you're able to love all aspects of you, well, if you aren't able to love all aspects of you, you're operating under conditional love and you're not able to fully show up as your full self. And you don't get to experience divine love or unconditional love um, if you're not allowing every single part of you to be loved. Your deeper self loves every single part of you. And so if you're holding shame, there's a part of you that you're not allowing your deeper self, or you're not allowing yourself to experience the love of your deeper self fully, right? You're still kind of like, I know you love me, but I'm not that great. Or I do this like thing, I masturbate. Right, or I did this, I made this mistake in the past, I can't be loved, and I'm not belittling the mistakes, right? Guilt is healthy. You wanna make your amends, you wanna take responsibility for your actions and make any corrections that needs to be made, apologize, um, take accountability in business and finance, whatever it is. But we don't want to, hold on to shame and persistently hold on to shame, right? Okay. And so, what is our shame asking us? I did this series years ago when I was just starting out as a coach, and it was exploring different emotions and what they're really asking of us. And shame, I still hold true to this. Shame is asking you, am I lovable? Do you love me? It's not even asking, do they love me? Does society love me? It's asking, do you love me? Do I love me? Do I love me? Because we are we're the caretaker of our own spirit. Not anyone else, us, right? We're our own caretakers. We're the stewards of our own hearts. And so that part of you that feels ashamed and disconnected from, it's not that it feels disconnected from outside world, feels disconnected from you. And it's asking you for love. And we know this because being in a place, let's say I'm thinking about sexuality because that's what I work in, just being in an environment that embraces your sexuality, it helps in healing shame, but it doesn't do it all the way. Because you can be there and still, be rejected or like feel ashamed of that part of you. You can still not have loved that part of you. Or, if you're in a relationship and your partner's like, oh, I still love that part of you, but you're like, oh, let's say, but you you still haven't you haven't co-signed on that love, right? We can still be carrying that shame, right? So we got to co-sign on it. Who's a co-sign on it? Mm. And so as long as we are experiencing and we're rejecting a part of us, that means we are not experiencing true self-love, not to the fullest extent. It also means we're not a safe space for ourselves. We're not someone that we can come to. We can't actually come to ourselves. That's why so much becomes unconscious or unaddressed in our lives, because we can't honestly come to ourselves without that shame, right? Because we don't love all parts of us. We can't you know, nestle in and be with ourselves. We hold things from ourselves. We don't always tell the truth to ourselves. And you can see how that can really slow us down in life and also get us into a bit of a mess, right? Where we're creating things, but we're not really creating for ourselves. We're creating for others, or trying to keep ourselves in a specific good social standing, and life starts to feel empty. It feels like I have all the things, but I don't have, right? That realness isn't there, right? And so that means we're certainly not free. So what's the solution, right? We're loving ourselves free. Shame is asking for love, right? Shame is asking for love, and if we don't give it love, then it pulls on our puppet strings. And so here are just a few ways that you can address shame. And yes, finding a new community where that thing that you're ashamed of is talked about, um, expressed, or held, in confrontation, one sec, in contemplation. Um, you can also work with your shadow self or rejected self to reintegrate it with your heart, your greater love. And this is where the deeper self practice comes in. Feeling how much your deeper self loves you, all of you, right? And actually feeling like the love that flows from your deeper self to this part of you is healing. Healing happens when we are in relationship, right? When we're actually in a relationship. And it could be with a therapist, a coach, right? A friend, but it can also be with ourselves, our deeper self, right? So it's a powerful healing that can occur when you allow yourself to sit in the love that is flowing from your deeper self. And that's something that you can do in your daily meditation. That's something that you can add an extra 10 minutes of just resting in the love of your deeper self, feeling almost like you're in the arms of your deeper self and just kind of like a little child, snuggle into it and uh, let it have its effect, and you'll feel it by the end of the 10 minutes. Another way is to, and then once you start to do this like emotional healing work, you want to start to nurture safe spaces where this previously shamed part of you can express and play. That can be in your new community, that can be with us, right? I am bringing back the Academy, I'm working on it. Well, am I working on it? I'm doing a lot of work on accessing the deeper self, to be honest. And I'm contemplating it. I'm dreaming. I'm in dreaming mode. And like I said, once it's time, I move quickly. So I'm not too worried. Once things are in place, I have my place to record modules, and I want to do a lot more video content because before I was mainly audio, but I want to go back and go through and see what I want to adjust in my programs. And so if sexuality is something that you're working on reclaiming your pussy, your sexuality, your sexual essence, um, bear with me, or check out vaginal rejuvenation. That's also still open, uniquebell.com/vaginal rejuvenation, or just head to uniquebell.com where you are right now watching this and just click, the home button and go to programs, and you'll see it at the bottom. And I also still offer intimacy coaching if this is something you want to work on one-on-one. But you want to look for places where you can start to play and express with safe individuals, people who aren't going to shame you. And then when you get to the big leagues, then you can just go and be yourself, even with those who are carrying their own shame and are projecting it, projecting, their own like shaming action onto you because they themselves, they're going to even be tougher on you because they don't want to lose their social standing in their group, right? And so you could recognize it as projection because, hey, you've done the journey, you've come out at the other end, and you recognize I was doing that too when I was there. I understand it's not about me. Part of me that was shamed, you're still safe here, you're still loved. And so that's the journey of healing shame. So again, tools that you have to help you with this, the deeper self practice, connect to love. This week, maybe add 10 minutes to your daily morning meditation or whenever you tune in, and really soak up that love. Feel the physiological changes that occur when you are marinating in the love of your deeper self. It really works. It really works. And I do want to shout out one more thing. I told you I had a couple announcements. I'm a little bit over my goal for 45 minutes, but it's okay. We're getting better. I was really good yesterday. I was really good. I was proud of myself. Um, so I am offering donation-based. I'm calling it donation-based, but these are not like donations that you can like, write on a tax form or anything. It's just pay what feels good. Private coaching sessions. I'm calling them the nurture sessions. And these sessions, I started offering them because I got just well, I feel like the whole healing journey I've been on with recovering from narcissistic abuse, I've just become galvanized. I just feel like an agent for change. And I want to do my part. I'm gonna do my part. And so that's me right now. And I recognize that not everyone can pay for private coaching, and this is a great need. And I love private coaching. I don't have, a big following, so I don't have like big group programs, and so I just know for me, private coaching is just a wrap for me. And maybe later, I'll do something group coaching wise, pay what feels good group coaching wise. But for now, I'm offering pay what feels good private coaching sessions. They're called the nurture sessions, and you can get them at uniquebell.com/nurture sessions. And so you can get those sessions at uniquebell.com/nurture sessions. And again, it's pay what feels good. Just pick a time on the calendar. Currently, I'm keeping the limit at 3 sessions. And so yeah, that's it. You can come in to work on what we've talked about here, healing shame, inner child healing. If you're working on intimacy goals, anything. And I have a whole list to that you can, as you select the time, you then have a list of topics that you can choose to address in session. So take advantage of that offering, and please do share, because I want to reach as many people as possible. And you can join for as little as $10, and it goes up. So why not? Why not? Let's shift the tides together, because the thing is, if we are dysregulated, if we are not able to show up fully in our power, then it makes us vulnerable as a society to dangerous rhetoric, violent governments. And so we want to make sure that we can show up and fight strong. Yeah.